All right, so by now you're probably all really tired of talking about the DJI FPV drone. But today I decided I was going to do a range test with this drone as safe as I possibly could, but I also didn't expect to also test its resilience in the wind. Let's get started. What's good, everybody? You're watching Original Dobo, and today I took the FPV drone out for a bit of a range test, but it was also really windy when I was doing this test, and I guess I got a chance to test both range and wind factors on this drone today. And I have to say, I am really impressed with what it was able to do. One of the biggest reasons why a lot of people would gravitate towards this is obviously because it's easy, it's for a beginner. But as a seasoned or veteran FPV pilot, you may also be interested in knowing that the range on this is excellent and the fact that the fail-safes are almost idiot-proof. And I say almost idiot-proof because, well, shit still happens. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of narrate this flight that I did with the FPV drone today. It was absolutely what I would say is pretty much bonkers. I took it out roughly about 6,500 feet. Now, to be clear, I did have a spotter with me who was basically tailing me with a Mavic as well, and he was also standing next to me. We were basically a direct line to where we were flying. Now, we were taking off from an undisclosed location for reasons that I won't repeat. But yeah, so if you're watching this, you can see that the palm trees are blowing around pretty heavily. It was a bit windy. It was blowing about 15 miles per hour. And then there was wind gusts of about 20 to 25 miles per hour. Now, this drone is rated to handle winds of that nature, but I wanted to see what impact it would actually have on the battery itself. Now, I am flying in full manual, and the reason why I chose to fly in full manual is because it was going to give me the best possible chance to keep this drone tilted as far forward as I possibly could to try to break its way through the wind. If I was flying in sport mode or normal mode, I don't think it would have been able to fight these winds quite as easily. Now, while I'm going through this portion here, it looks like I'm going really slow, but in actuality, I'm doing about 44, almost 45 miles per hour, which is actually pretty damn fast considering I am going into a headwind. That was the other factor that is the reason why I chose this specific location, because as I was going through doing the range test, I would be going into the wind on the trip there and have the wind with me coming back. That was my goal anyways. Now, I am staying fairly low. This is like a little bit more of a low altitude range test than you would typically see. A lot of times when we're doing range tests on these drones, well, you would see these things at 200-300 feet, but I'm quite literally maybe 35 feet above this orange grove, which isn't really much. Now, the further out I get through this orange grove, I do have to increase the altitude, and that's just because now I'm getting pretty far out. At this point, we're well over the 4,500 mark. We're approaching the 5,000 foot mark here in just a moment, and I wish there was some way to record telemetry to this so I can actually show you this, but you'll just have to take my word for it that this is 6,500 feet. So we're coming up to the second orange grove, and you can see the wind is really giving me a hell of a time. The drone is bobbling back and forth. And again, flying in manual, I'm doing the best I can to fight the winds. Now, my goal was to approach the tower, which this is Bok Tower. I'm going to approach the tower. I'm going to do an orbit around the tower and then be on my merry way right back to me. It was supposed to be a round trip. However, coming up to the tower, I am coming in a little bit lower than I initially thought I would be. What I should have did was increase my altitude, and you can see, again, really fighting the wind on this turn. As I'm going behind the tower, the drone disconnects. And at this point, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, oh shit, the drone disconnected. But this is where that failsafe comes into play. Any other FPV drone would have fail-safed if it lost signal there, and it would have probably plummeted. Or if you had a return to home set, it would come back home at the current altitude that it was, or rise to the current altitude. Betaflight does have those options in place, but it wouldn't look necessary like this. Now, mind you, I did not lose my video feed. I did, however, lose my radio feed. So the radio feed cut out first. I still had video, which I thought was interesting. So I am frantically at this point tapping the pause home button to try to get this thing to come back to home. Finally, I hear the beeping sound where it's returning back to me again. I can still see it. I can see it flopping all over the place. And finally, now it's coming back to me. So basically, I touched down with right at about 55% of battery left, which is pretty damn phenomenal. Now, at this point, as it's returning back to home, it is in sport mode. So it is in the fastest possible setting that it can be. It's returning home at about 25 to 30 miles per hour. Now, you can go faster if you push that up tilt up and get a little bit more speed. It's also returning back at about 278 feet, so much higher than I actually came out this way with. I'm going to go ahead and speed this portion up so I'm not sitting here all day, but it does make it back. We do touch down, no problems. That was the last flight I did with it there at that location, simply because after that, I just deemed it just way too windy. It was one of the reasons why, too, I wanted to test it there, because if it went down, it's over a sparsely populated area. It's a controlled test. It's safe. It's not going to hurt nor damage anything or anybody. Definitely a little bit scary when it does disconnect, but just know that if you do trust the fail safes, they are going to bail you out. So it is nice to see that when this does disconnect, the fail safes are absolutely working. I know people have said that, oh, it disconnected on me and it just fell out of the air. I don't know if that's the case, because I've had this thing flying and I've shut off my radio and it lands for me. So I don't know if I really believe that. I just know that 6,500 feet from an FPV drone is pretty damn amazing. And OcuSync 3 was able to keep a really low latent video feed back to me to where I felt comfortable as a pilot. Now, one other thing I should mention with this particular test here is that I was flying at 4K 60. If I even wanted a lower latency video feed back to the goggles, I could have had this in 1080p 60, which on a long range journey like this, it probably would have been a smarter thing to do. Now, beyond that, I did do some camera tests with this today, and I did find that the camera definitely needs some work. It doesn't do well in harsh situations, so just keep that in mind, that it really does crush the shadows quite a bit. And it's one of my biggest complaints with this camera, is that it's not fast enough at adjusting the exposure values. And there's no way you can manually tune that. Unfortunately, it is what it is until DJI gives us some options or does a firmware update. But I thought this was pretty interesting. So if there's one piece of positive information, is one, it can definitely handle the wind. It's not going to kill the battery entirely, even if you were flying in manual. And the safeguards do work. So when you do lose connection, it's going to come back to you. All right, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like if you already haven't, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay original. So it says, an Indian town in Lake Wales was plagued by huge raids by a huge gator. Now, see right there, done. The chief and gator were killed. That's good. In the final battle, blah, blah, blah. Spook killed. If the gator seeking revenge, protecting the land. Stop the car on the white line, place in neutral, and let it roll back. All right, so you got to go to the white line. You got to let it roll back. All right. All right, so there's that white line right there.
All right, you stop on the white line.
Oh shit! All right, so it says you got to put it in neutral. So you're supposed to let it roll backwards.
All right.
Is it rolling?
It's rolling.
Is there people behind us or no?
No.
All right, so it's rolling. How long do you let it roll?
I don't know.
This doesn't seem like safe directions. Wait a second. Is it slowing down? Are you doing that?
I'm not doing nothing. We're rolling back uphill.
Okay, so it's rolling. Oh, no, we're rolling down. What the hell? How is it rolling uphill like that? All right.
We're rolling uphill.